everyone. Can you hear us? Doing a test sound. Can everybody hear us on the Zoom?
Loud and clear.
I can hear.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, good morning to everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Commission on the Status of Persons with Disabilities. As always, before we begin our meeting, a few housekeeping items. I want all to know that this meeting is being conducted virtually on Zoom and in person at the Mass State House in Hearing Room A2. It is being live streamed on the masslegislature.gov website, and a video archive of the meeting will be available on this webpage and on the Commission's website shortly after adjournment. We have cart services captions enabled, and we have shared a cart services link with the attendees and the viewers in advance of the meeting. Our cart writer is Cindy Kim. Thank you, Cindy. We also have American Sign Language interpreters for today's meeting spotlighted. Our ASL interpreters are Lena Dumont and Sophia German. We have a very busy meeting agenda with 2 presentations. So before we begin with our roll call, I just want everyone to take a moment and celebrate the tremendous October events that we had an opportunity to speak about. And in your email inboxes today is the final annual report with the tremendous graphic additions that we had discussed in our last meeting. And we are deeply grateful to Rachel for all of her help with that. And as always, we recognize Imen's incredible work and approval of that. Imen, at this time, I turn to you for a roll call.
Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. Jassy Burks Abbott,
Present.
Charlie Carr, Representative Gerard Cassidy, Representative Denise Garlick,
Present.
Nancy Garfosi,
Craig Hall.
Present.
Representative Kate Khan, Andrew Laval, Ann Lynch,
I think you're mute.
Andrew Laval, Ann Lynch,
Present.
Regina Marshall, Felix Martinez, Oz Mondejar,
Present.
Representative Matthew Muratori, Bridget Murphy,
Present.
Senator Patrick O'Connor, Angela Ortiz, Kathy Butkowskis, Carl Richardson, Rachel Stanton,
Present.
Megan Todd,
Present.
and Chris White.
Okay, thank you. We may
Man, I don't know if you caught me. I am here. There was some audio difficulties when you were in my section of the alphabet. So
Yes, thank you. I have you present. Thanks, Andrew.
okay, thank you.
And Angela just put in the chat that she's also present.
Yes, thank you.
And Ortiz.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move to the approval of the September meeting minutes. The draft meeting minutes from September 13th were circulated before this meeting. Does anyone have any edits that they would like to put forward? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion. Osmondo.
A second?
Second, Craig Hall.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please vote aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed? The ayes have it, the minutes are accepted. So we are going to move immediately into our agenda to discuss the Health Equity Compact. This is going to be a presentation by Oz Mondejar, by Dr. Guy Fish, the CEO and President of the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center, and Jeff Sánchez, the principal of Sánchez Strategies. We are delighted to have them join us here today, the team. This important coalition of change makers has been brought to our attention by Mondejar, who is a compact member. Jeff Sánchez, as the principal of Sánchez Strategies, and Guy Fish of the Family Health Center are going to speak to us on health equity and the Health Equity Compact's policy priorities. We've talked about the issue of health equity in the previous meeting and are interested in learning more and have a fuller discussion. As you listen to the presentation, please reflect on the ways that we can be involved as this commission, particularly as we have talked about building our work as brick by brick, not only focusing on the workforce issues, but now as we look to strengthen that work and the other subjects that are entailed in that. As a reminder, I just want to tell people we are looking for your support around a partnership with the Health Equity Compact. The Health Equity Compact does have one of their priorities around legislation, but this commission does not endorse legislation. All right, at this time, I would turn to the Health Equity Compact team.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Garlick, and it's great to be with you all this morning. I also want to thank Imen, as always, and Alicia Del Vento for putting us together. It's such a great privilege to introduce two amazing organizations that are making a difference. When I think of my role serving in the commission, it's such a powerhouse, and the focus of employment and healthcare are very near and dear to me. And today, as a compact member, I have the privilege once again of introducing my colleagues here that will speak to the details of the Health Equity Compact. It's such an important piece of work that they're leading, and I'm so proud to be a member. Specifically for me, it's around healthcare access for persons with disabilities and the intersection of disability within all communities. And Dr. Guy Fish and Jeffrey Sánchez will speak to the details of the Health Equity Compact. So I thank them for making the time, and I'm just going to turn it over quickly to them because it's a really busy schedule. So thank you. I'll go to, I guess, first Jeff Sánchez.
You're on mute.
Hello, Madam Chair, and to the members of the Commission. Jeffrey Sánchez, former state representative from Jamaica Plain. I don't get to say that often, but I'm really happy and proud to be with you today. I was planning to be there with you, but unfortunately, my elderly mother needed a little bit of attention between last night and today. So excuse me for not being present with you today. It is not for a lack of not wanting to face you and to be in your presence. I very much appreciate all the work that the Commission is doing to make sure that equity comes in all aspects relative to the impact of state government. And that's what, frankly, this compact was organized to do. We began this compact as a result of a legislative, as a result of a legislative commission that you, Madam Chair, had opportunity to vote on, and that was establishing a legislative commission to study the effects of COVID-19 relative and health equity. And as a result, there was a study, there was a report that came out of that was pretty voluminous that came out. And right after that, people that were members of that commission essentially got together and said, okay, now that we understand what happened and where the faults are, and within the people that participated, there was this sense that we already knew where the problems were going to be, and we already knew where the faults were going to happen, and it was in particular communities, and those communities were frankly communities of color. When we saw in the city of Chelsea, where 1 of 4 people were infected during that critical initial time that people were infected, people understood quickly the reasons why. It's a tight-knit community. There's only one bus in and out, and all of the people that work in that community work in jobs and where they're working hand by hand, side by side, either in kitchens, either in packing plants, or in places that that they were working collectively together, amongst other reasons. And at the same time, there was a sense that there was a lack of response by our healthcare institutions to really, to really deal with that. There were people that were showing up to emergency rooms in our prominent healthcare institutions and literally being told to go home. And they went home and they died. We saw it firsthand and we saw it up close. So after that commission, we all got together and we said we need to do something from that and build off of the Equity Commission report. And so we started talking to leaders across the Commonwealth to try and talk about where do we go from here. And within that, we essentially built an informal group of 80 people of color, leaders of color in the Commonwealth, to talk about where we should be investing ourselves to try and establish a health equity agenda for the Commonwealth. The organization is represented by a significant number of people from business, labor, philanthropic community, hospitals, community health centers. These are some of the faces that you see of folks that are part of the compact, and they range. The majority of the folks are, the vast majority of the folks are folks who are in the C-suite of organizations, because we felt that we needed to target people who are in leadership in organizations to try and make sure that that they're able to talk to their and engage their organizations to not only have a discussion about what we could do in terms of changing laws and impacting policy, but also making sure that we were talking about equity within each individual organizations in which people represent and as a part of this membership. Next. So we established through the help of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation, we conducted a study in which we essentially estimated and looked at the cost of inequalities within the Commonwealth and the economic burden annually that health inequities cost the Commonwealth of Massachusetts relative to those inequities relative to people of color. It's broken down by $1.5 billion in avoidable healthcare spending, $1.5 billion relative to loss of productivity, and also $3 billion relative to how much it costs in premature deaths, and that's secondary because ultimately the loss of life is profound. And these are things that have been documented year after year after year. When we look at the mortality levels, the infant mortality rates in Black communities in the Commonwealth compared to mainstream communities, we see that there is a dramatic difference in relative to where people live and the zip code that they live in here in the Commonwealth. But once again, this is information that we in the community have always known and that we've always tried to talk about in the halls of policy. And we did have certain opportunities to deal with some of those things. We worked on Chapter 58. We came into, we came into responsibility where everyone said we're going to have shared responsibility relative to making sure that everyone has an insurance card in their pocket. But one thing that we do know, having an insurance card in their pocket doesn't necessarily mean equity relative to how people are treated and also the long-term outcomes when it comes to acuity of care, chronic care, and other conditions in which people are affected by and how the healthcare system addresses those needs. Not only that, in total, we have, as a part of that study, the annual economic burden of these inequities, we believe, as a result of the framework of that study, feel that this economic burden can balloon up to over $11 billion in lost economic and productivity as a result of. So we believe that not only is the more important reason, the moral obligation that we have to address inequities, but also we believe that there is a cost benefit to the cost realization of not dealing with inequities head on. So next, so through that, in all of our discussions and all of our meetings and our engagement in communities, we've had countless meetings in communities throughout the Commonwealth, with individuals, with community leaders, through summits and and round tables and engaging in living rooms and so on. We've gone on a traditional, campaign spree to get in front of people to talk about inequities and engage them. And then in doing that, within our own group, we established, in our discussions, we established 6 policy areas to work on: governance, measurement, accountability, workforce, healthcare, payment delivery reform, recovery and access, and the social determinants of health. Now, all of us have seen so many of these things in the past. I mean, I worked on Chapter 58 in 2005, 2006. I worked in city government with the Department of Public Health in the mid-90s on the social determinants of health. Plans that Mayor Thomas Menino worked on. A lot of us have been working on this for a long time, and these 6 pieces are the pieces that keep on coming up time after time after time. And the difference now is that now, again, after the pandemic and after the murder of George Floyd, which was also a seminal event that got us together, we talked about what we could potentially do, and that's where the bill that we have put together has come up. We have this House Bill H 1250 and Senate Bill 799, and these are our lead sponsors of the bill itself that is currently in the Healthcare Finance Committee. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we work with the legislature, that we continue to work and engage in communities throughout the Commonwealth to make sure that we're able to proceed and engage and actually pass further meaningful legislation like what we did in Chapter 58, Chapter 24, where we established the CHIA and the HBC, and then after that, all the other pieces of legislation that sought to not only deal with the quality, the care issue, the quality and cost and access. But we believe equity should also be in that top sphere, in that top line, in that top line advocacy as well. Next slide. So again, this is we had a nice hearing on this past September, and we had a diverse group that included leaders from across the Commonwealth, racial equity leaders, disability leaders, people within the mental health space, and all of them came to engage with the members of the committee to advocate for engagement on this health equity bill. And it was not just only the 80 members of the Health Equity Compact, but also individuals and organizations, endorsing organizations that have been a part of this movement since we began throughout the COVID pandemic. Next. So the bill that's before us looks to get at health equity, looking at, again, to advance these systemic changes that are going to look to change the dynamic of equity in the Commonwealth, where we prioritize equity in state government, where we standardize and report on data to advance health equity, and also, again, like I said, improve access to quality care. So, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you. And right now I'm going to pass it to a phenomenal leader in healthcare and community health, Dr. Guy Fish.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Chair Garlick and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to dive into the substance of the bill and how it intersects with and supports the disability agenda. I want to preface our review of the substance of the bill by stating that the Health Equity Compact has worked closely with key stakeholders especially to include disability and gender within the language. The red line of the registration that was submitted to the Healthcare Financing Joint Committee included specificity on disability with respect to data collection, assessing discrimination, and standardizing regulations. These additions were submitted to the committee, and they are the provisions italicized on the next 3 slides. As Jeff said, there are 3 pillars to the bill. The first pillar on this slide focuses on system-wide transformation by changing the existing structures in state government. And we do this by making equity a key function of the state government. While health equity is within the purview of the Department of Public Health, there are many other secretariats that touch upon upstream factors that affect health, like housing, transportation, and education. But if everyone is responsible, no one is accountable. We also want to make sure that state government includes leadership from communities of color. After all, government can only properly work if it is reflective of the community which it serves. And finally, we want to invest in health and not just healthcare for low-income populations and communities of color. So to achieve these goals, the legislation in this first pillar would create a new cabinet-level Executive Office of Equity to be led by the Secretary of Health Equity, similar to a new climate secretary that Governor
Excuse
Healy.
me, Dr. Fish, the interpreter's going to ask you to slow down just a little bit. I can't keep up with you. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. So this cabinet-level Executive Office of Equity would be similar to the climate secretary Governor Healy has added. And this secretary would be a partner with you in this work to ensure equity across all agencies. Next, the legislation would diversify gender, racial, ethnic, and ability composition within leadership of key state agencies, boards, and commissions such as the Health Policy Commission and the CHIA Oversight Board. And finally, investing in community-defined and led efforts to build healthier communities by addressing the root causes of inequities. Specifically, the red line calls for diversity of ability among the board members in these community-led initiatives. Moving to the next slide. In the second pillar, I'll state that as a leader in healthcare, I follow a business aphorism: you can't manage what you can't measure. So it's imperative that Massachusetts creates a clear mechanism for reporting accurate, relevant, and timely health equity data. Measurement is foundational to advancing health equity in multiple ways, to identify disparities in care processes and health outcomes, to serve as a basis for payment models that incentivize health equity efforts, and to allow public accountability. Though health disparities have been studied for decades, the breakthrough change that's required is standardization of measurement and a far stronger emphasis on accountability in state-mandated processes. So we need to move towards a common set of metrics and data collection processes in service of health equity, much like the work that's been done with the Massachusetts Quality Measure Alignment Task Force. So this legislation in its second pillar would use standardized health equity data metrics across payer and provider organizations. It would create new accountability mechanisms for reporting the data and would direct state agencies to report publicly on the data to identify disparities and track progress on health equity and social drivers of health in the Commonwealth. Moving on to the third pillar, while Massachusetts is a leader in health access and quality, there's still more work to be done. We need to make sure that we reduce the gaps in coverage and staunch rising healthcare costs for low-income Black and Latinx individuals so as to reduce healthcare and health disparities. We need to improve access to health services. We need to tackle the workforce crisis and build robust and diverse workforce that is representative of the community, reflects the communities that are served, and make sure that they are delivering culturally competent care. So this is why the bill in its third pillar would provide full mass health coverage for all people who are otherwise eligible, regardless of immigration status, including young people. We would address the increasing cost burden for individuals taking certain medication for chronic conditions that disproportionately affect communities of color and low-income communities. It would require reimbursement parity for telehealth services, for primary care and chronic disease management. It would require provider organizations to meet or exceed national standards for culturally and linguistically appropriate services and multicultural health care. And it would authorize a career ladder program for diverse workers who reflect the communities they serve in, particularly in safety net hospitals and community health centers. We acknowledge the importance of disability voice in this workforce, and that's why we've included language in our red line on data collection and licensing standards relative to ability and addressing ableism. So, again, the Health Equity Compact has worked closely with stakeholders to specifically include disability and gender within the language as submitted in the red line of the legislation before the Healthcare Financing Joint Committee. Significant highlights of the bill include a definition of health equity that includes disability. It includes disability as a social economic and social demographic factor when disaggregating data to track population level outcomes. It includes equity impact analysis of housing policy to have accessibility as a dimension of the analysis. It includes equity impact analysis of healthcare access, which includes home and community-based services. The bill includes ability diversity in the healthcare workforce, which must inform CHIA's understanding of health care access. It includes Health Equity Zone Advisory Board member criteria, which includes diversity of ability. We also include minimum licensing standards for continuing education, which includes skills to address how ableism manifests as health inequities. And it clarifies that priorities related to the disabilities are included in the definition of health equity. Finally, it includes addressing the cost burden of certain medications. So, going beyond the work of filing a bill and having budget priorities, we're also working to convene and engage folks across the Commonwealth, because this change won't happen on its own. We must work together to make it so. And we're amplifying, clarifying, bringing together threads of health equity in many different ways. We're holding health equity community engagement forums to raise support in communities across Massachusetts, but we're also in those sessions listening to inform our work. We're collaborating with Blue Cross Blue Shield and Massachusetts Foundation for the economic cost of inequities report that Jeff outlined. We've commissioned a health equity public opinion poll with Mass Inc. And we've hosted the first Health Equity Trend Summit, bringing together leaders across healthcare, government, business in last June. And I want to close by sharing results from those last two activities. So statewide, we had a health equity poll with Mass Inc. that shows very broad and deep support for health equity that gets beyond ideals and into concrete ideas about health equity policy priorities that the state legislation could act upon. As you can see, the numbers are in the 90s and high 80%. Large majority support a range of potential policy priorities, with the highest support going to medication affordability, investing locally, and in culturally responsive health care. These policy priorities reflect the key barriers to health equity, notably the cost and accessibility of health care and health insurance, which is an issue that I know resonates across your constituencies every day. And the top barriers of health equity cited in open-ended responses were healthcare insurance, accessibility, and cost. 23% respondents, and then also social economic factors, another 23%. Now, it's important to note that when asked overall, 16% of respondents felt that they were discriminated against in the healthcare system due to disability, 16%. But when you look even deeper at the crosstabs, that number can get much larger for certain groups. For example, 28% for the lowest income respondents, 21% for Latina women, and interestingly, 30% for Western Massachusetts. Finally, here are some photos from our incredibly successful first ever Health Equity Trend Summit held at UMass Boston. This is the first time we've ever had key leaders across healthcare, business, state government, all coming together to talk about how we can make health equity a reality, closing the gap, a reality in Massachusetts. It's never been done before. and was made possible by this group, all of you, who represent so many different aspects and sectors and calling for change and demanding action. So thank you for everyone who supported making it a success, for showing up, for bringing people from your networks, for your opening your wallets and being part of panels. And we have in separate ways shared with you debrief documents providing the key takeaways from the summit, as well as a survey. We have, as a movement, great momentum going for us for all the right reasons, and we're looking forward to making a difference with your help. And I'll now pass the mic to Alicia.
Hi everyone, just want to do a little closing. I know the commission has a tight schedule, but as we enter some questions, Q&A, just wanted to put up here, we please ask you, and we know the commission does not do legislative work, but in your individual organization, please support and act to advance health equity. And we really want, as we do some Q&A, if you see any alignment between the work of your individual organizations and our policy priorities, to kind of form a partnership, as well as how can the compact partner with the commission moving forward. So I am going to stop screen sharing and open it up for some Q&A. Thank you so much, and thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, our hearts are with Jeff and his mom. And thank you for Jeffrey Sánchez for even taking these few moments to be with us. I just want to set the table here a little bit for our discussion. I'm very hopeful that the commission members appreciate that the executive committee believes that this is a very important discussion for us to be having. That although we do not endorse legislation, we recognize that each and every one of you is a leader in the disability community. And we want to ensure as a commission that as leaders you have all of the information that is available in order to inform your work and for you to be able to be communicating effectively. We have two subcommittees presently, led by Kathy Patauskas and Angela Ortiz. And those subcommittees have done incredible work in this past year and are moving forward, looking to the goals for the upcoming year of 2024. As we're doing that work, we believe that this discussion about health inequities and the information that we can do to further, I'm sure you all remember this whole metaphor around we are individual planets trying through the commission to form a galaxy, right? That this information will inform the commissioners in their work to strengthen that network and to do that work moving forward. And to that effect, with the help of any questions that you have of the Health Equity Compact folks, I would ask you to think about ways in which we believe that the commission can add the issues of health equity to the goals that we have, that we can look at the principles that are putting forward by the Health Equity Compact and infuse those principles as well as we set our goals for 2024. So with that, I want to open up to all of the commissioners a discussion around this health equity. I'm hoping very much that we will hear from Mondejar, who is a commissioner working on this, and that we will think about the ways in which health equity has an intersection with every one of the goals we want to look at in the upcoming year. And with that, may I open this up to the commissioners for any discussion?
If I may, Chair. So terrific presentation, and I'm just thrilled that we had this opportunity to learn more. A couple of things that Dr. Fish addressed. One is a collection of data. So through your communities, dear commissioners, I would encourage for folks as they get their care to disclose in that private area, so then they're counted. Because if you're not counted, you're not going. We're not going to get the services. The other point you made, Dr. Fish, is around training and cultural competence. Coming from a healthcare system myself, I know that's critical for us to identify as having a disability to get appropriate care. And it's critical that we are served as we want to be served. And so access equity is really important to this discussion, and I appreciate your presentations. Thank you, Chair.
Any additional comments from the commissioners or thoughts about the commission, which will be the final discussion, approving the thought that we're going to infuse health equity into all of our goals in the upcoming year? I'm going to ask you men to handle the raising of hands and who wants to speak.
Yes, I see. Excuse me. Jeff Sánchez?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank you again and also to throw flowers at Oz Mondejar. When I first started working in 1995 for Tom Menino, the person who I knew that was working on health equity was Oz Mondejar. I mean,
Wow.
he is somebody that I've learned so much from, and I don't like counting years because I'm lucky I lost all the hair on my head, so that but the Oz, I've learned so much from him, and having him as a part of this compact, and at the same time seeing him as a part of this commission just further solidifies that we have accomplished, but at the same time we still have a lot to do. And by you, Madam Chair, making this a collective with us to work with you, again gives us more energy, more gas in our engine to move forward. So thank you to you and the commission.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, on a personal note, I have only had the opportunity to know Oz for a short amount of time, but deeply impressed as you were for a very long time. But for me, Jeff, it has always been you. For more than a decade, it is your voice that I've heard, and I thank you for your leadership.
Jesse?
Yes, I was just curious as to what the status of the bill is, like what committee it's in or where it is in the process moving along.
So the bill's in the Healthcare Financing Committee, and we've been engaging with individual members as well as the chair, and frankly, not only individual members of the committee itself, but also individual members of the legislature, both House and Senate, as well as members of the administration that we've been having pretty engaging conversations with. So, and we've been fortunate that the folks that are members of the compact that have standing with everyone that are the leading policymakers, like the chairwoman and the members of the legislature that are here with us today, Representative Bartor, Representative Khan, I see, and I'm sure there's a few others just off the top of my head, but so we're continuing that engagement. But the bill is in committee, and the big deal for us is hopefully we're hoping to towards Joint Rule 10 deadline, and hopefully we can make it there. At the same time, we do hear that there's a healthcare bill that healthcare bill or bills that members of the legislature are working on. So, we're hoping to see some of our bill, or if not all of the bill, incorporated. But if the legislature decides to move forward on an omnibus bill, that's pretty big to begin with. So again, we're gonna be looking for the word equity in everything that comes out.
Rep. Khan?
Thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words, and I really want to thank the report Guy for his report, and also always enjoy working with Oz and Jeffrey Sánchez. So it's great to be here. I just, and I apologize, I came in late, I had another commitment. But the one thing that kind of sticks out for me, and I just wondered if that's been part of the discussion, and that has to do with transportation. We talk about housing and we talk about healthcare, but transportation, I think, is a piece that I think needs to be part of the discussion. I'm very aware of it, mostly because in my own community, I've been struggling for the entire time I've been in the legislature to have equity in terms of our commuter rail, which comes through the city of Newton, makes 3 stops and is impossible to get on for anyone that has any kind of disability. You have to go down 43 steps to the platform. And I've been working with the administration on this. We're a little further along than we have been for a while, but I just wondered if that's been at all part of any of the discussion in terms of health equity.
I mean, in terms of in terms of details like that, we tried to go very high level, and we're finding opportunities as we go along. But in the bill itself, I think it leaves room for that, as well as other subject areas, because as you very well know, when you go into the weeds, it would be a lot for us to add individual areas, and we wanted to make sure that we stayed pretty up in the sky, and also allow for for definition. Like a part of the bill includes something relative to establishing health equity zones. Like if we have a sense, if utilizing some of the studies that have happened, for years, when we look at, the hot spotting initiatives that happen in Newark, New Jersey, or other initiatives that have happened relative to targeting particular communities that again, relative to these, those zip code reports that we've seen, that's where we feel like there's the opportunity to be able to capture that and go and be granular about how investments should be made, and at the same time how policy should be dictated in those particular areas. So again, while not getting specifically into it, it doesn't mean that it's not incorporated in places where people can have those discussions. But it is the bill is very community driven in terms of that aspect. So there is a place for it.
I appreciate that. I just want to make that pitch because, while we're working really hard with the new administration and all the needs of the MBTA, for example, I just think it's something that I'm hoping that I can pitch to have this included in some way, because, as we upgrade our system, it's something I think that is important for people to be able to get to their appointments, to get to their jobs, to get to in and out of the housing. And now that we're moving toward this MBTA communities piece, this is all part of, I think, what we need to be thinking about. So I just want to make that pitch to think about this going forward in terms of access. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
I don't see any hand raised.
So we don't see any other hands raised. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, so I'm now going to go just for the commissioner's input on this. And I just want to remind you about the policy the commission has about not endorsing legislation and why we have that policy. We have that policy because the commissioners are appointed by a variety of authorities, and some commissioners do not have the ability to endorse legislation because of the agency that they represent. It has been the executive board's belief, and the discussion we had with the commissioners, that we don't want any spectator commissioners. So we're all actively engaged in the ways that we do this, and we don't put up avenues in which some commissioners cannot participate. We are all commissioners equally. Having said that, though, what I would like to do is get feedback from the commissioners that this information has been valuable to them, and in our subcommittee work, which has been so robust, and looking forward to that work, I would like to get feedback. The commissioners would be interested in infusing the health equity principles, as we've learned through this bill, and as we know this work is progressing, into our own subcommittee work, that we would like to maintain a relationship with the Health Equity Compact folks, and that for those individuals who are have the ability and the liberty to endorse legislation, that they feel comfortable doing that as individuals. That does not, because you're a commissioner, it does not then mean you can't endorse any other legislation in whatever hat you're wearing. So if that's helpful to all of you, I would really appreciate some feedback. If this has been valuable, and if into our subcommittee goals in 2024, which are many, right, that we would infuse these principles around health equity and try to uphold this conversation in the varieties of communities in which we act. So what might be helpful is, if this feels good to you, can you just raise a hand on the screen, and I would have a sense of what that means, although let me see what I can see here.
Okay, I can name, I don't know if you have questions, but Angela, did you want to make a comment, or just raising your hand? We can't hear you. No, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Jassy, did you have a comment?
No, I was just raising my hand.
Okay, just checking. Andrew?
Same, just raising my hand.
Great. I see Rachel, hand raised, Bridget, Rep Con, and Oz.
And me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And Chair
Okay,
Garland.
great. Sorry about that. This is Commissioner Ortiz and Chair of the Workforce Supports Committee, Subcommittee, and this is critical. I think having a racial equity lens was definitely important to the work in building our goals for 24, and that definitely incorporates the health equity lens. So I think we can be more intentional with specific questions and how we, as we proceed in implementing our goals and how we're pursuing them. I think we can get very intentional, having that health equity lens as well as the racial equity lens. So I am so grateful for this information and really looking forward to digest this more with the subcommittee.
Okay, Kathy Petauskas is also a subcommittee chair, but we knew in advance that she wasn't able to be with us today. If anyone else would like to speak from that subcommittee, the Workforce Employment Subcommittee.
The disability employment.
Disability, excuse me. Okay, so.
If I could, Chair, I'm
Please.
also in that subcommittee, and I would
Please,
say
Les.
we would endorse. I will speak with Kathy directly, but I'm sure our committee is very much engaged with this effort.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to make one more comment, and then I'm going to ask Emen to read out the names of people that use the hand raised on their computer that support the idea that we will infuse the issues and principles around health equity into our own subcommittee goals that are varied and different moving forward. What I wanted to do is to thank the Health Equity Compact for their willingness. I'm looking for our commissioners to work with them, but I want to thank the Health Equity Compact for wanting to work with us. In every conversation I hear about DEI, I am always trying to say in diversity, we need to be speaking about people with disabilities. In equity, the folks from the Health Equity Compact are saying, yes, we too want to speak about people with disabilities. And in inclusion, we always want to speak about people with disabilities. So to have this as part of our goals, I think is very important. Having said that, I'm going to ask Emen just to read out the names of the commissioners who are in support of infusing the health equity principles into our work.
Okay, if I missed your name, please let me know. So I have in my list Rep Con, Rachel Stanton, Andrew Lavault, Jassy Brooks Abbott, Bridget Murphy, Ann Lynch, Oz Mondejar, Chair Garlick, Angela Ortiz, Carl Richardson, Rep Muratori, and Craig Hall. Did I miss anyone? Okay.
Having heard this incredible list of our commissioners, is there anyone who did not join into this and anything that they need to discuss or would like to clarify with the Health Equity Compact people? So I thank all the commission. Excuse me.
Sorry, Regina Marshall. I see her hand raised, and I'm promoting her to panelist. So she's one more name I'm adding to the list.
Okay, all right. So I hope the Health Equity Compact, it's hard to read this, and I think former legislators are trying to see the vote. This is an incredible show of support, incredible show of support. We thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to many conversations, certainly with Oz's leadership for the commission in his serving on Health Equity Compact, but for each and every commissioner that they know the Health Equity Compact folks more, and that we can carefully follow the work and learn and implement as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairwoman, and to the members of the commission and everyone that's participating today and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time
Thank you.
and support.
Great day.
Thank
Bye.
So at this time, with the commissioner's support, we are going to move to a presentation from the Harvard Graduate School of Education students. These are students who have worked with our commission. They are talking about transition and post-school outcomes for students with disabilities and closing the gap to post-secondary education employment. Angela Ortiz and Eman have been working closely with this great group of students as part of their state education policy course. They have researched, studied, and analyzed the following key question that was designed by the commission, right? And our question to them, our charge to them for their work was, how can school-to-work activities for transition-aged youth with disabilities, which we know there is a tremendous gap there, be improved to address the gaps in short-term and long-term outcomes? As you know, this project aligns with our mandated goal to study, reviews, advise, and report on school-to-work activities. So with that, I turn this to the Harvard graduate students. We thank you for your work. We thank you for your presence here today.
Hi, so we wanted to thank the Commission for having us today, and in particular to Imen and to Commissioner Ortiz for all of their help throughout the semester on this project. We're here today to present our project on transition services, and in particular to address their role in addressing the gaps in opportunity for preparation for post-secondary. Oh, sorry, ad block wants to be updated. You want to do that?
They can't hear you. Did you turn on the?
Yep. Can you hear us?
Folks on Zoom, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, if you could speak a little louder, that would be great. And if you could spotlight yourselves.
So they're spotlighted. They're here in person. Thank you. Go ahead.
So our particular focus is on looking at the role that transition services have to play in addressing the opportunity gaps in preparation for post-secondary education, employment, and life for youth with disabilities. So in addressing that one key question that we just heard, the proposal broke down into three key areas. The first was in investigating the current post-school outcomes of youth with disabilities in education, employment, and life. The second is in identifying the current services and supports available in Massachusetts. Third was an exploration of alternative approaches and programs available in other states. And fourth was to bring those things together to identify the ways in which we could address gaps in transition services in Massachusetts. So we chose to begin this process with a series of interviews with a variety of stakeholders from the field, including students, parents, educators, as well as government departments, including DESE, DDS, MRC, the Department of Health, local CPACs, and non-governmental organizations, including Mass Advocates for Children, ARC, UMass Boston's Transition Leadership Program, Brandeis, and Massachusetts' own Macy Center, so that we would ensure that we were centering the perspectives of those most affected by this field in our investigation of those gaps, current services, and potential responses to gaps in Massachusetts.
So transition planning starts at 14 for students in Massachusetts, and this includes more than just making sure they have a job, but encompasses all of the tools and skills like self-advocacy, self-determination, and independent living that they need in order to have a good life. Really excitingly, DESE has been working on a new IEP incorporating and embedding transition planning into the actual form. In addition, the new IEP also centers student voice making sure to build towards the vision that the student has for themselves.
Thank you. So based off of our qualitative analysis from stakeholders, they identified what we call the cliff. This refers to the start cutoff of support services for students with IEPs after they graduate high school, turn 22, or drop out of school altogether. This cliff is characterized by three components, being inconsistent opportunities, lack of student agency, as well as equity barriers at the intersection of race, ethnicity, and language. So using the cliff as a lens, let's see how this has affected post-secondary preparation and outcomes by looking at state indicators 1, 2, 13, and subsequently 14. So to begin—
Please slow down.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
So red here indicates students with disabilities, while blue indicates students with non-disabilities. Going over each indicator, indicator 1 goes over graduation rates, while indicator 2 dropout rates, and 13 just general state compliance with the Federal Individuals with Disability Education Act. The main takeaway from this particular slide is that students with disabilities are graduating at lower rates and dropping out at higher rates. When looking at particular data as to what Massachusetts currently collects as to why students are dropping out and who is dropping out, we found this to be an area of improvement for further data collection and include this within our recommendations. So moving on to indicator 14. So indicator 14 particularly looks at post-secondary outcomes 1 year after students graduate from high school, turn 22, or exit school altogether. This particular indicator does not disaggregate data based off of characteristics nor demographics, but what it does is holistically gathers information of where students are heading. So it gathers information on those enrolled in higher ed, competitively employed, as well as in a training program or other employment. Overall, we see about 77% of these folks entering one of these three avenues. Looking at national data as to what top industries folks are heading into, we see that education and health services, retail trade, professional and businesses rising to the top, and we also recommend that Massachusetts look into what particular industries our particular constituents are going into. Now moving on to Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. We chose to specifically highlight this organization given that it has comprehensive post-secondary data. Looking at what particular outcomes are coming out from the clients of this organization, we see that folks are on average making higher than the minimum wage, are being employed at higher rates compared to the national average of other folks with disabilities, but we do see disparities when it comes to financial independence, where we see that students without disabilities are opening checking accounts at higher rates compared to students without. So moving on. So our particular recommendation is that according to the data that we need, as well as the need to disaggregate data, that the U.S. Department of Labor and DESE create a data task force to collect longitudinal data based on post-secondary outcomes specific to Massachusetts, as well as comprehensive breakdown of demographics. So throughout our interviews and surveys, we identified 3 recurrent themes in the gaps our interviewees would discuss. We're going to go into each of these 3 themes in the rest of our presentation, but first we wanted to note the critical role that these cliffs, again, play in each of these gaps, as the manifestation of each of these gaps is most prominent when students arrive at that cliff point and find that the mental models utilized, the information made available, and the partnerships formed in this field may not be sufficient to ensure a smooth transition to post-school services, education, employment, independent living, and community involvement. These are some additional important themes that some of our interviewees identified that do not cleanly fit into those 3 areas that we're focusing on, but we did want to highlight them as areas for ongoing research.
All right, so first we're going to look at mental models, which deals with a framework or a mindset around transition services and what students are accessing. So first I want to talk about charting the life course. This is a curriculum that includes students, caregivers, employment specialists, teachers, counselors, caseworkers, and more to provide a framework. And this looks at dealing with the quality of life for a student with a disability. And this instruction is through building independent future across stages and areas of one's life. These 6 domains will show up in our report that we'll be uploading, and if you are interested in learning more about the specifics of charting the life course, you can look at that in our policy report. Going on to stakeholder perspectives, in interviewing these key stakeholders, we noticed within mental models that critical aspects of a transition-based curriculum cover self-advocacy, consistent support for job and life coaching, experiential learning, considering for areas of need outside of employment, and an asset-based mindset. So we're really looking at, within this framework, the quality of life for a student with a disability inside the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. Looking at the current approach of Massachusetts, the state has partnered with the ARC of Mass, which is a disability advocacy nonprofit, as you all know, in 2021 to create videos that streamline opportunities and services for families to access. In addition, DDS they created a roadmap to expand employment opportunities and meaningful community engagement. Lastly, going back to charting the life course, they are planning to integrate this for families to support employment and day services, and they want to improve guidance for implementation rather than stopping with availability. So they want to, first of all, make this accessible, but that they want to look at how can we guide different perspectives within the disability community to utilizing it. Lastly, looking at a state comparison, we looked at Utah, and they are currently using Charting the Life course to identify and bridge gaps for families accessing state services. They're using this data from this course to integrate peer supports, which essentially means placing individuals with disabilities with peers and staff, and so they have that peer relationship that will help support their quality of life development.
All right, so I'm going to go over some of the knowledge gaps that we found. Specifically, we want to improve access to information on transition services by expanding training opportunities and digital resources. So, majority of our interviewees had mentioned that there is a notable gap in the knowledge and practices of teachers and administrators in supporting students with IEPs throughout the transition period. Now, we subdivided this issue into 3 subgroups. So the first issue was that there's a lack of teaching supports in trainings and professional development on transition services. The second is that there is a lack of student-facing supports in developing agency, autonomy, and basic life skills. And lastly, teachers and administrators lack the knowledge of the different resources available to their students. Next slide, please. So, what's currently happening right now in Massachusetts to tackle this issue? Well, there's the Comprehensive System of Professional Development, also known as CSPD, that provides 2 modules on transition services. Module 3 specifically goes into talking about the transition process here in Massachusetts, and they also provide trainers at a limited capacity for districts to provide these modules. Next slide, please. So when looking around the different states, several have done it pretty well in addressing this gap. However, Connecticut does a particularly good job in their state education Resource Center, also known as CERC, in providing a comprehensive professional development and training for transition services for SPED teachers. They make this really accessible through the calendaring of those yearly trainings where there's descriptions and registrations and links available there. So you want to use this framework in moving forward in what we want to recommend. Next slide, please. So with that said, our first recommendation is an expansion of the different trainings for teachers and for administrators and families. Our first main point of the recommendation is a mandate of the CSPD Module 3, Charting the Life course curriculum for all SPED teachers that deal with transition services. We also want to use Utah's framework in developing workshops for parents to understand the transition services and how that relates to their students. And lastly, we want to make sure that this happens throughout the school year by creating a variety of trainings such as asynchronous, online, and in-person trainings. Now I'm going to move it forward to Chaz to talk about the next recommendation.
All right, so when looking at knowledge gaps in Charting the Life course, our second recommendation would be to revamp DESI's websites, transition services page. So creating these drop-down subpages that are content specific to providers, students, and educators. So an example of what this would look like for a student is promoting their student voice. So we talked about a gap in having student voice through the IEP document and within instructions. So a student-facing website would have resources such as social awareness, education, employment, housing, life documents, and money management. And I wanted to iterate that all of these resources are incredibly important for every single person in the world, honestly, in accessing these resources. But a student-facing website for a student with a disability would just have embedded supports that a supervisor or a teacher, a parent, an educator would be able to support them in accessing these documents. And providing an online calendar of each training, PD, and workshop for the year on a living document with registration links and descriptions.
So lastly, we're going to do a quick overview of gaps in partnerships in this field, which limit our capacity for coordination, communication, and collaboration. During stakeholder interviews, a number of our interviewees specified 3 particular areas for concern, including our ability to reach families and students with disabilities with information on the available services and supports, the absence of a point person at the state level to provide direction, leadership, and spearhead advocacy, as well as their absence at the district level as a point of contact for students, families, educators, and providers, and a conduit for connection between stakeholders. And lastly, the inconsistency of availability of information and services between districts. The types of opportunities that these concerns limit, some examples are given at the bottom of the slide. To address the gaps that this creates in communication, collaboration, and coordination, our stakeholders often suggested or requested things such as a state coordinator, school district liaisons, additional team members, state conferences, and student-facing resources and employment fairs.
On the slide, this is just a snapshot of all of the organizations with programs and services available for transition planning in Mass. There are over 500 transition point people and specialists that guide families, but oftentimes they wear many hats and are very bandwidth constrained, and families still have a hard time obtaining the information that they need.
One example surveyed in our report is the transition specialist provided by the state of Maryland. They have 3 state-level transition specialists, which provide program and technical support to local transition specialists, and sit and represent the division and department on state and federal councils and committees. At the district level, transition specialists provide student-to-student counseling. They support students in schools in addressing challenges and collaborate with school staff, community partners, and families.
So our recommendation takes a page out of Maryland's book. It would be a team of these state-level transition coordinators to act as point people to advocate for transition planning in board and commission meetings. Next slide. And they'll oversee a network of district-level, on-the-ground transition liaisons that work directly with communities and families. The goal is to make sure to build the students' personal vision and empower them with a network of services to smooth that cliff and help them transition into having a good life. And yeah, thank you so much. To close quickly, I wanted to sincerely thank Madam Chair and the commissioners for giving us the time to show our research. Transition planning is a vast, very vast, but unbelievably crucial space, and this presentation was just a snapshot. And we would love to take any questions if you happen to have them. Thank you.
So we thank you very much for your presentation. May I open this to the commissioners for any questions or concerns?
Carl, I see your hand raised, but I'm not sure if that's from earlier.
If I may.
Yes, please
First
ask.
of all, I also want to add my appreciation for this very thorough and important report. And I'm thinking, Commissioner, Chair Garlick, could we share at the right time through Angela with our Department of Labor and Workforce Development? I think they may have an interest in hearing more how they could get involved in this process, and also the Department of Education. I mean, there's some opportunities here because there is some work underway that we may not know about, And I would just suggest that. Also, it would be helpful, I think, for Commonwealth Corporation to see this as well. Thank you.
I see that as well. We are waiting not only on this excellent presentation by the students, but they are producing a final report. I think with it would be very wise of the commission, when we see the final report, we'll send it out to commissioners, any feedback we would want to get, and then with Oz's suggestion, I believe we should send that report with a cover letter to those entities and ask for feedback as well. And I just want to add, on a very personal note, how important this work is. As the parent of an individual with developmental disabilities, the most difficult and, for lack of a better word, really scary time for my daughter and my family was as she was turning 22. And there are indeed many programs in the state that are difficult to navigate and don't have a tangible outcome for an individual with disabilities. And I believe that the work to improve that process that you are highlighting so clearly is absolutely integral to the way an individual with disabilities can have a positive and productive life. And when we talk about our subcommittees, when we talk about individuals with disabilities who can and want to be in the workforce, and we know so few of them are employed, a better transition would make that more possible. And when we talk about the workforce that is serving individuals with disabilities and a better understanding of where individuals are at age 22 and what their personal goals are and supports would make a major impact. And I believe would also help that workforce to feel more positive and productive as well. This is vitally important work, and on behalf of the Commission, I thank you for that. And we look forward to the report, and we will send you feedback. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Rep. Khan?
Thank you very much. I want to echo what Representative Chair Garlick just spoke about. And I think this presentation really is incredibly important. And I want to thank the Harvard Graduate Program on Education for bringing this to our attention. I couldn't agree more. I think the idea of figuring out a state coordinator or something of that sort would really be incredibly helpful. I have employed in my office folks who have disabilities, and you kind of feel like you're alone. You don't know where to turn if you feel like you want to do more for the person in your office, or somehow figure out even transitioning from working in my office to something else. And I've had parents call whose child, for example, had gone through an education program, I think through Mass Bay, and had internships, but then it was like, well, what next? What else can we do? Where can we go? So I would love to see if we could figure out how to move forward, for example, like Utah that you presented, and I think you said Maryland as well. I just think we can do much more in Massachusetts than we have been doing. And I think, our commission on the status of persons with disabilities, and I'm on the workforce committee with Angela. I would love to be able to talk more or work more toward doing some of the things that the the Harvard graduate education folks are doing, because it was a great presentation. So thank you very much.
So Rep. Khan, I often like to say when we're talking about the community of individuals with disabilities, we've come a long way. It's just that we've got a long way to go. But I want to thank you for your work for years, Representative Khan, in helping us to come as far as we've come so far, and for your contribution to working together as we move into the future.
Thank you for that. And I just think this is all so important. So I'm delighted that I'm part of this commission and look forward to kind of moving forward. And you're right, we've done a lot, but there is a long way to go as well. So thank you for your comments.
Angela?
Yes, echoing everything Rep. Khan and Chair Garlick have shared. It's been a real privilege to work with these students in a limited capacity, and Men has really held the reins, and it's just been amazing to watch this process unfold and work with the students who I'm so proud of, and they do bring that sense of hope. I have a daughter with, she's only 10, so I feel that I'm the beneficiary a lot of the fight and work that parents did before me, and those same parents that fought the good fight, the services that we have today are because of their efforts and the work of the legislature. And they are the same parents where there's not a lot of services right now. So we're paving the way to create that for the next kind of, generation of students. So we're at a tough point right now, but knowing that there are other states doing this and doing it well and having this highlighted is just really critical. So I'm excited, and I think there's a lot that we can do here with this, and I am so appreciative that this work has been highlighted and we have an opportunity to take a deeper dive and see, how we can continue to work on this. So thank you. Kudos to you students and kudos to Amen, and to be continued on this important work.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a quick minute just to thank this incredible group of folks who took this project and ran with it. I think that the report is going to be very comprehensive and has given us a blueprint of how to improve the transition period for youth and young adults in Massachusetts. And some of them were also classroom teachers, so they really brought in that background in the work that they did. And so just wanted to really thank you for all of your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, one more deep breath, and at this time, we're going to turn to the time frame that we reserve for any commissioner announcements, anything you'd like to share, anything that's upcoming. No announcements? Then let me make an announcement. As I always want to let you know how deeply we respect the time that you give to the commission, and always want to make sure we utilize it. I'm never afraid. If we close 12 minutes early, I think that's 12 minutes I've given back to you in your busy lives. What I would like to do is to wish every commissioner a warm and wonderful holiday season. I hope there's time for you to rest and rejuvenate. There is so much work ahead of us, but there's also a great need for us to care for ourselves and care for our loved ones, and I hope you can capture that time in this holiday season. So all my best to all of you. Thank you for this. We look forward to the reports we're getting from the subcommittee, the goals that we're seeing set, infusing some of that health equity into this, and making sure that work that is brought to us that is so significant, we as a commission are sharing that. That's a very important thing that we do, is to continue to build these networks, to build this support, and to share information, and we will do that with the report from the students as well. So thank you all very much. Take care.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
holidays.
Happy holidays.